In this video, I will be testing real-life military tactics to see if it would work in a military simulation video game. Specifically, I will be testing the Hammer and Anvil Tactic. And so before we get into the testing itself, let me quickly explain what exactly this tactic is and how I plan on using it in Arma Reforger. The Hammer and Anvil Tactic is comprised of two main components, the hammer and the anvil. Crazy, right? But the key of how this is used is that the anvil is a force which pins the enemy in place, and the hammer is what flanks the enemy to deliver the killing blow. It all seems simple enough. However, the reality of actually using this on the battlefield in real life is a much more complex subject. And so this is what I will now discuss. The Hammer and Anvil Tactic has been developed independently all over the world. People like to claim that, Alexander the Great was the first to use it and so on and so forth, but the honest truth is that the idea of flanking your enemy isn't exactly something that requires a genius to figure out. The problem is that real life is way more confusing than just moving blocks of troops around on a board or a piece of paper. I want you to also keep in mind that before the invention of aerial observation tools, people generally did not have a bird's eye view of the battlefield, unless you're lucky enough to find like a tall enough hill or like an elevated piece of land. But of course, this isn't always possible. So while Total War and other strategy games are very fun to play, don't get me wrong, keep in mind that you have the luxury of instant communication and a godlike observation of the battlefield with essentially little to no fog of war when compared to what military commanders would have faced historically and in reality. So I need all of you to keep this in mind when I talk about the strengths and weaknesses of the hammer and anvil. Assuming that the communication to execute this tactic is established and clear, let's talk about why this tactic is used and why it isn't. Typically, the quote-unquote hammer comprises of elements capable of fast maneuvers, whether that be cavalry, light infantry, or whatever it may be. The risk of the hammer and anvil is that the anvil may collapse before the hammer is able to make its appearance. In other words, unleash the hammer too late and you have no more anvil, or release the hammer too early and have it be repelled by a not yet demoralized or breaking force. The further risk is that, let's say you're faced with a force of relatively equal strength. Your enemy that dedicates all of its troops to the front line is capable of forming either a longer or a more in-depth front line. So what this means is that you either have to stretch your lines out to match your enemies or risk getting pincered and outflanked. So if you have an equal force and you're already holding on to some of that reserve for the ultimate flanking maneuver, you suddenly have a weaker front line, assuming of course that all other things are equal. And if you have fewer troops than the enemy, you can still pull off this maneuver, but again, the risk increases of everything going wrong before your plan can be executed. And yes, I am fully aware that I am generalizing. Your troops can be fewer in number but better trained and so forth. But again, I am just giving a scenario to highlight what this tactic offers in strengths and weaknesses, so please bear with me. If you match your enemy's formation while also needing troops in reserve, then as a military commander, you need to know when the best time to strike is, or else risk your entire line collapsing before you can make your decisive action. But this leads to another problem: detection and the fog of war. The hammer and anvil really only works if your opponent is caught off guard. It kind of goes without saying that your hammer isn't really useful if your enemy has a force in reserve or ready at the flanks to repel your flanking force. So you need to hide your intention and bide your time. Begin maneuvering too early before the enemy is engaged and risk having the enemy sensing your movement. Move the hammer too late and there's a chance that the enemy, who, by the way, typically also has a brain of their own, is not going to just sit still and let you do your thing. So the enemy may have already executed their maneuvers, leaving your flanking force either engaged, destroyed, or distracted. So how do I pull this off in Arma Reforger? My previous example was primarily in the context of linear warfare. However, this tactic can be pulled off in modern maneuver warfare, albeit with some adjustments. What this means is that for this segment, I'm specifically talking about how I will be using the Hammer and Anvil tactic in Arma Reforger. And the Anvil is simple enough: a base of infantry equipped with machine guns and other standard assault team equipment. But what does the hammer use? Well, horses aren't an option in this game, as cool as it would be, although not very practical, so what next? I can use light infantry or standard infantry moving in smaller and faster groups to swoop around the flanks and attack the enemy. However, since this takes place in Arma Reforger, a Milsim game set in the modern day, our flanking group is most likely going to get detected before or as we are making our flanking movement. And remember, the success of Hammer and Anvil requires surprise. If the enemy knows we are coming, then we just become targets. Okay, so what next? I could walk with myself or a buddy or something like that and we move in stealthy pairs. It's worth considering for sure and could work. The problem? Once we engage the enemy, then it suddenly becomes a full-on firefight. Now in real life, of course, this could work as the majority of battles typically end when one side loses their morale, not when they fight to the last person. So in real life, this surprise may be enough for the enemy to break or retreat as they are suddenly hit by a barrage of weaponry and bullets and whatever from an unexpected flank. But what about in Arma? Well, people in Arma typically all fight to the death because it's a video game. So while this surprise flank with just a light group of infantry might work in real life, it doesn't really work when the enemy is just going to turn around to your direction and start shooting. As again, the worst thing that can happen for an Arma player is that they have to stare into a respawn timer and then grab another sparkling water or do a blinker check or something. So my solution to this is to become a sniper. Snipers in Arma, and real life for that matter, can hold up an entire platoon or more of soldiers as they leave the enemy pinned and suppressed through accurate fire. No one wants to get their head blown off if they can help it. Also in a video game, no one wants to die for no reason. Snipers also have an element of, I guess you can say, mystique. Is there two snipers shooting? Maybe just one. Do they have a crossfire going on? You have no idea. Or maybe it's not a sniper, but a really good rifleman keeping you pinned as their forces outmaneuver you. But more so, my goal as a sniper is to, of course, directly pick off enemies, but to also leave the enemy guessing on where to actually look and hide. If they are hiding behind a piece of cover and suddenly their buddy next to them explodes, well then now they have to decide to either sit there and hope it was just a stray shot or a ricochet, or move back to somewhere with more cover and concealment. Whether or not the enemy chooses to do this does not matter. Stay and they get their spleen exploded. Leave now and your friends now have more breathing room to take space and move up. As a one-man sniper, you also have more room to sneak around and stay undetected much easier than a pair or a team. But at the same time, you can leave the enemy guessing, paranoid, and just in general confused about how many people are flanking them and where exactly they should be watching and looking at. So in this game, I will be playing as the Hammer, while my team acts as an Anvil. And with that being said, let me explain the first test and what exactly the plan is. So right now the enemy is based in the military hospital. As you can see, one side is water and along a coastline, meaning that the enemy really has no place to retreat to once we start pushing them back. So how exactly do we plan on executing the Hammer and Anvil? The Anvil will use the tree line as cover, coming down from the north and northeast. The idea is that with these angles covered, the enemy really has no place to go but either fight or use the southern road to escape. It is expected that the enemy will send patrols to sally forth and try to lead some counterattacks, but my role as the Hammer is to take the wide detour off of our left flank. The tricky part is that this tree line ends very suddenly, forcing me to either take a slower and safer route, which means that I might miss the action and arrive too late, or try to stick with my friends as long as I can to eventually break off and flank the enemy. So for this first attempt, as the Anvil is making its way down the hill, my goal is to stick close on the left flank of our team as long as I can, and then break off to start my enveloping movements and cause chaos on the contact line of the Anvil assault team. So I'm hugging the tree line and I hear some bushes moving in front of me. Now I can't really keep track of all my teammates at every moment, so it could be a friend up ahead. However, I hear the sounds of the moving coming towards me, and so I figure that it has to be an enemy patrol. And so I decide to quickly hide into a bush and hopefully let the patrol pass by before I can continue. Oh shit, it's enemy talking. What the f- Oh! Keep in mind that I am not wearing a ghillie suit, just like a light plate carrier and a baklava. So sure, I'm camouflaged, I guess, but I have no idea how actually camouflaged I am to the enemy. So this guy walks literally right on top of me, and it looks like he's already aware that someone is nearby. So at this point, I kind of figured that he saw me earlier running along this tree line and is now looking for me. So I conclude at that moment that it was only a matter of time before he or his buddies found me, and so... Oh shit! He doesn't know where I am. He doesn't know where I am. I have no idea if I killed this guy or not. Now, I definitely knocked him out. I'm pretty sure I saw him go down. But since I have a pistol, there's a good chance that he just gets back up. I would run over there, like to his body to check if he's actually dead and put a few rounds into him. But I don't know if his friends know I'm here or if I should just like move at this moment. Oh shit, grenades! Oh god! He's got a buddy. Fuck it. Ah! Alright, so what happened was I wanted to throw grenades because, again, it was like a middle ground between actually running into the open with like a pistol or not doing anything at all. I got a few grenades off and I'm pretty sure those finished off the guy I knocked out. However, I couldn't be 100% sure as the guy could have gotten back up while I was prepping my grenade and started blowing me up, but I'm pretty sure the grenades that killed me were from his buddies. Okay, so what lessons did we take away from this first attempt? Well, obviously everything went to shit when our group got hit way earlier than I expected, and after I died, our team did finish off the patrol that killed me, but I mean at that point we had lost our flanking force as I got blown up. So to adjust for this second attempt, the plan is for me to take a wider detour and try to avoid this closer tree line for as long as I can. The downside is that this will take much longer for me to flank as I don't want to run into this open field and get taken out too soon, but at the same time the only other approach with cover is hugging this second tree line and then cutting back across the open field for my flank. Alright, so I cut the footage of me running for like 10 minutes hugging the tree line because I don't think any of you want to actually watch me run around for 10 minutes. So the footage right now is me doing that final sprint across the open field that I was talking about earlier. That way I can cut my way into the enemy's flank. And here's a better view of what I'm talking about. You can see that I'm way out on the left flank trying to cut them off right now. And I'm pretty much alone right now too. I hear someone shooting. Oh shit. Oh my god, he's breathing so hard. I don't want to run up to him, so I'm just gonna throw a few grenades and leave. It's way safer than like actually running up to him and shooting his body because I can't see him either. And yeah, I gotta go after this. I did like an artillery strike on his body. Oh shit! Die, motherfucker, die! Did I get him? Oh, what's that? First of all, I am really grateful that I ran into these two enemies as they were pretty obviously setting up an ambush for anyone coming towards them from our lines. And actually, if I did not take the detour I was talking about earlier, I would have probably died because these two people would have ambushed me. But now I am seriously in trouble as the enemy knows that I am here. You can even see one guy turning after he heard me and before I started shooting. And while these two kills are important to give my friend some breathing room, I still need to finish my flank, like it's not over yet. I made so much noise. I gotta go. Oh. So there's a rock in front of me that I can hide behind. The problem is that there's so much shit in the air right now, just exploding things around me. I now found a decent spot to snipe with pretty good overwatch of the objective. However, like usual, there is a problem. During my adventures to get to this sniping position, a friend started flanking them from even further south. Now, this guy's welcome to do whatever he wants. Don't get me wrong, he's not wrong for trying to flank the enemy. But the problem for me is that now the enemy is fully aware that there are numerous people approaching from the flanks. Our hammer and anvil looks more like a general encirclement at this point. Again, not that this is a bad idea, but at least for the hammer and anvil, I have lost my entire element of surprise. And so I decide to just sit tight in this spot and wait for the enemy to get complacent again before I resume picking them off. Alright, so they're shelling the hell out of this place, and I'm not sure if I should move or if I should just wait it out, because I can't tell if those helicopters are trying to shoot straight us or them. Like, because there's so many shits flying. Oh fuck, someone's shooting at me. Is that? Oh shit, yeah, that's me. So what happened here is that I got counter-sniped by someone. I'm pretty sure it was a sniper that started paying attention to my avenue of approach, although thankfully they didn't actually kill me, but now I have a serious problem. Do I run or do I stay? Whoever shot me is most definitely still watching my position. I was on like a weird slope when I got shot, so I'm pretty sure my body like did a little slide somewhere where he couldn't finish me off with a follow-up shot. So if I don't move, maybe he will think like he killed me or something and start looking somewhere else. And if he runs up to my position, I mean, I'll hear him running and hitting bushes in his footsteps, and I got an automatic pistol to hopefully deal with him. And also, this is a pretty good sniping spot, right? So I just figured that it would be safer and easier to just stay in place and hope that the enemy thinks that I'm already dead, and hopefully stop paying attention to where I was sitting before. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I got messed up. Look at my arm, what am I doing? Yo, they are, oh. Wait, mama! So we ended up taking the objective from test 1 and 2, the military hospital, after I died. Will I count that as a success? Probably not. I'll go with no, just because while I'm sure my flanking did some good damage and it sort of just became a general encirclement afterwards, it still wasn't really the hammer and anvil tactic that I was trying to execute. With that being said, it is clear that the hammer and anvil does have some good potential to be properly executed, so let's talk about this upcoming third test. This third test takes place around a town. Our anvil will be approaching from the southwest while I approach from our left flank to attack in almost like a perpendicular angle to the enemy. One of the difficulties of urban sniping is escape routes, at least in Arma. Finding windows and buildings to shoot from is simple enough, but the problem is that the escape routes you can take once spotted are limited. Once you start shooting, if the enemy pins down which building you're engaging them from, there's not much you can do once an enemy infantry starts to surround and clear your building with explosives and rifles, especially after the recent Arma update, which allows your building to be just completely level. And so once you're surrounded, you essentially have to fight to the death or hope your friends come and save you. So keeping all of that in mind, the plan is to have our force coming from the southwest while I occupy a building here on the flank. The road gives me a straight line of sight into the enemy objective, with the downside of this location being really obvious, as once the enemy starts to take shots from their right, it doesn't exactly take a genius to figure out where the shots are coming from. Oh shit, they're on the roof. What the fuck? Is he Superman? Where the fuck did he go? Oh, he's getting back up. Fuck, I'm ass. What? Yo, how do you flying fuck did those shots not hit? Okay, to be fair, I did whip some shots, I'm not gonna deny that, but some of them should have clearly hit, so I'm just saying, alright? At this point, I figured it would be probably time to leave this position, as if they haven't figured out where I was, they'd probably figure out where I am pretty soon. So I'm gonna move up closer to a building, hopefully right next to the objective and where I need to be, and hopefully all before they actually pinpoint my location. So this building I found, this spot is perfect. And the hammer and anvil tactic that we're executing right now is still going pretty well. Our anvil is still strong and putting pressure while the flank is now complete. Now it is time to collapse the enemy line and secure this objective. So that gunfire in the distance is our friends shooting, so I can tell that our friends are getting closer and closer. What the fuck? And finally, we are about to take this objective. The strengths and weaknesses of the hammer and anvil tactic discussed in the beginning of this video holds true for Arma Reforger. From all 3 attempts, you can see examples of failures and successes of this tactic. And so here are some key takeaways for if you want to try this tactic for yourself in Arma Reforger. Number 1, less is more. Again, you don't have to do this solo. However, regardless of whether or not you do this in pairs or small groups or by yourself, you need to remain undetected, at least not exactly known for as long as possible, right? So even if you got a few shots off and the enemy knows you're in the general vicinity, you still don't want them to pinpoint your exact location and your strengths. The moment the enemy is clearly aware of your flank, you might have attack helicopters or artillery or whatever raining on your position, and whether or not you're hiding in a bush or camouflage doesn't really matter if a big ass artillery shell lands next to you. So again, be stealthy and remain stealthy and unknown for as long as possible, even after engaging, if you can. Number 2, take wider flanks. You saw what happened when I stuck too close to the anvil. The problem with sticking with your friends is that while on paper, for sure, they provide relative safety if you do find the enemy, all it takes is a stray shot or explosion to take you out. If you sit next to your friends and the enemy is attacking them, you might be caught up in a firefight that you didn't ask for, except now you have the wrong gear and equipment for a conventional firefight. So take wider flanks. Even if it takes longer, it'll still be faster than dying and having to flank all over again. But more so, it allows you to actually flank and cause havoc while having less risk of being caught up with your friends while they're exploding. I hope you enjoyed watching and thank you for making it to the end. If you have a specific tactic you want me to try out, then please let me know. Although I know linear tactics always don't translate to modern conventional or maneuver warfare, but hopefully you get what I'm saying. So like and sub if you want to, of course, and bye.